Good to see you all, saints. God bless you for your presence, taking time out of your schedules to be here. Lord, the Lord will have a reward for you at the end, and also in this life that we are now in as well. And so we, on Wednesday, had begun a study in the book of Joel, famous book mainly known for the statements that Peter makes in the book of Acts. And so this will be part 2, the prophecy of the redemption of Israel. The prophecy of the redemption of Israel. And so we'll go back to Joel. We're actually beginning with chapter 3 because we had covered, chapters 1 and 2. Forgive me, we had covered those. And so we're going into chapter 3 of the book of Joel. And therefore we will be able to complete this particular lesson. This again, chapter 3, 1 through 21 is our text. But we will pull up some verses prior to from the chapter number 2. And we're going to start around verse 28. And we know that from this portion that we're going to read, we're going to validate the point that the darkening of the sun and the moon, these particular things, we still see them happening. But the idea is that the Lord mentions that these things are going to happen before the great and terrible day of the Lord will come. This is not the end of the world. This is not the day of Pentecost. This is the destruction of the nation of Israel, their land, their temple, and they being a people. They're going to actually be persecuted. They're going to be slaughtered. And a lot of times people forget this moment in time because they're so used to Israel being flung and they're brought back at the time that these statements are made. Israel has been brought to the land physically, but they're not in control of anything. They're still prisoners under the rule of the Roman government. Yes, they can travel, but they are a nation without a king, without a leader. And so therefore they belong to many nations. The land is heavily populated. Some have gravitated back because there is no ruler who is so far removed from them that they've been taken to a different land. Some of them are in every nation that exists. And we see that from the study prior to, as all the different nations are mentioned. But Joel 2 and 28 says, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh." He says, "And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke." Now from this statement we studied last time, when we and you'll find this on YouTube also, part 1, we studied that this is what Peter was talking about from Acts chapter number 2. So this shows that when the people began to speak in tongues, this is the beginning of the Spirit being poured out on the flesh. The apostles, the other group that is with them, a total of 120, they already have the Holy Spirit within, and now it's being poured outward to where people can see this. And so this is what he says: "Pour out my spirit upon all flesh." And this is where you see the outward signs. And he says, verse 31, "The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord." Now we still have the blood red moons that develop, but people have to understand is that when he says this, he says these things will happen before the end will come. So they knew whenever they saw, okay, the moon's turning blood red. Okay, so this is one of the signs. So Now at this point, an individual has to stop and say, okay, well, it wasn't turning blood red before that. Because you have to stop and say, okay, well, how would they know? Somebody say, man, the moon always turned blood red. So you never know nothing. It wouldn't be a good signal. Oh, the sun, always getting dark. We know that it got dark when Jesus died. But the idea is that there is a signal now that is happening. All these things are happening before. So these are things that obviously will not commonplace men, because it would be like just like the sun. He didn't say, and the sun shall shine bright. Well, man, the sun shines bright every day. There'll be no signal. So now after this thing has happened, you have the people that are lost. They rise up and say, well, see, the moon is still turning blood red. It's talking about his return and 1,000-year reign. And the destruction. No. See, this is where being lost gets you in trouble to speak with intellect on a Bible conversation. And so he says here in verse 32, and it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord had said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. So now the statement is, okay, Pentecost is going to hit, and then this day of destruction, it's going to be a destruction that has never been seen before, nor the likes of. How? Because it is administered by human beings. And the human beings that are administering God's punishment, not that he likes them, but they're administering, is the nation that we know of as Rome. And this is why when Daniel sees the fourth nation, we've got to understand, there's 4 nations that had total domination of the world. It's not Russia, it's not America, it's not China, and it's never going to be none of them. There are 4 that have total domination, and there'll never be any with that type of power. 4 that have ruled, and they rule the earth. If they weren't bothering you, that's because you had nothing they wanted. And if they wanted to, they would come and take it. And God said, I will not forbid them. And they will have such a rolling power that they could even come and grab his children around their neck and squeeze the life out of them until they holler, help us, God. And then he had mercy on some. And so we see now, as we understand this, the prophecy of the redemption of Israel as what's being foretold. Daniel speaks of this 4th nation as a very different nation in its bloodthirsty manners of killing. And Rome has historical reports, other nations that were bludgeoned by them, that there was no value for fleshly life. Although, of course, they just didn't kill everybody. But if they didn't like you, there was no like, no, it was like, let's torture, let's rip, let's pillage, let's destroy. And so there's a succession that has been given, as we see in the book of the New Testament, that Aquila and Priscilla tell Paul when they run into them, because they're both tent makers, we have to get out of Rome, because the ruler that Caesar said he don't want no Jews in his city at all. And they were expelled from Rome during the days of Paul. And so then you have a situation that develops after that, to where this nation gets so tired of Israel, it says, because Israel had a mouth on it, and it had a reputation with it that it belonged to God. And the Christ, who is supposed to be the king, is spoken of, and they keep hearing this. It's king of the Jews, and then they had this guy here. Now they don't like him, but it's attached. So there's plenty of reason to hate them. So Flavius Titus is the one reported to be in control at the time by the historical value. And he is over Rome, and he says, we are going to tear up Jerusalem. That temple, because he knew they gained their strength from that. They keep on talking the temple. They said, we're going to bust this extra God stuff down and destroy it. And that's what Jesus meant by there's not going to be a stone there. And he said, no nation, he said, that's so bad. He says, you better hope you're not pregnant. You better hope you don't have a baby nursing. You better hope it's not winter. Because it's bad to be killed and hunted down, and it's cold. You run for your life, can't grab nothing to eat. Everything you be eating that's wild. It's hot because it's cold too. So it's a traumatic situation. So this is the scene that we have before us. So now we go to chapter 3, and he begins to break down. Now remember, Joel is saying this And it's impossible to guess a thing like this. This is how we know God is right. See, there is nothing written by Muhammad that is accurate. Nothing. Nothing he said. Nothing by Buddha. Nothing by Vishnu. Nothing by Confucius. There are guessworks. He has nonsense statements by certain so-called future tellers. A great thing will happen. You know how many great things happen? I could say myself, a powerful thing will happen that will change all of Russia. You could have threw out a lie like that hundreds of years ago. And he said, oh, maybe he's talking about when they split up. That's vague. This is specific. This is specific. Only God did it. That none of those false believers have ever said anything specific that locked down. Name he'll ride on a donkey. Call his name out Cyrus. It's impossible to guess such things like that. It's impossible for Daniel to guess all the different things that he go going to be the king of Greece. There is even no Grecian king that has taken over time. Persia is running everything. There's no fear. There's like, this guy's crazy, man. You know, so nevertheless, it happens just as he said. And we can validate these writings are extremely old and hundreds of years before the individual's action actually happened. So in Joel chapter 3, once again talking about the prophecy of the redemption of Israel fulfilled. The prophecy of the redemption of Israel basically is the title, but it is going to be fulfilled. Verse 1 of chapter 3 of Joel. For behold, in those days, it says, and in that time, those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. Now Joel is writing and speaking for God. This is God's mentality being said of what he's going to do. Verse 2. I will be God, will also gather. Now notice this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our time with this. This may be two parts here because the first two chapters we went through, they're different. This chapter gets into a lot of great detail with thoughts that show God is dealing with the souls of men. And our brethren don't seem to understand that. It's amazing. We have brethren in other countries that need Bibles. Like 30 Bibles. That's like $300. We got brethren buying backpacks for children that live in America. You know how many people give away backpacks free already? In America, at almost any school in any neighborhood you can go to. We got guys that are feeding people meals. But you got people in other countries that are picking up cans just to make enough change to try to do something with. And gospel preachers dipping people in water like they're taking a bath. I mean, constantly baptizing people under duress. How can we have funds to float to a rich country like this one over something like a backpack with all the money we got in this country? Not Bibles, not buying Bibles for the kids, a backpack. And so this is what's wrong with some of our brethren on this side of the world. So we see here, and they wonder why we complain about it. Verse 2, he says, I will gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. That will be around Jerusalem when you look this up. And will plead with them for my people and for my heritage, Israel. And they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Now see, now when a person who's lost like a Jack Van Impe or some guy, like I don't even know if he's still living, but he used to say a lot of very hurtful things, so disoriented from the truth. And so he'll see this and he'll go, when he sees the word plead, in his mind he'll think, okay, well see, this is the Armageddon, they're surrounding, and see, this is the part he's talking about. See, that's not what it is. The Lord is going to explain why he has to plead for these souls. These souls need pleading with, because these souls have been taken captive spiritually. They are struggling and torn between two worlds. They live in lands where idolatry reigns, even within their own land. Because of the Samaritan influence, is idolatry everywhere. It's such a disrespect to be from Galilee is like, can anything come good out of Nazareth? The mentality is, my goodness, that place is not even holy in their mind. But there are holy people there. But they have to understand is the individual that's reading this must understand the Lord is speaking about a spiritual situation. And these individuals are allowed, they are coming by their own will to come from all the different lands on the day of Pentecost. They're not captive in chains in Egypt or in Pamphylia. See, they're not in chains in Ethiopia. They're not chained down. They just have no king, and they have no particular nation where they can say, okay, we are a nation and this is our land, because that's what he means by the land is parted. So it's not like it was in the days of David. Man, you'd have stepped your foot now when David was alive. Man, you'd have had trouble pulling this off with Saul. As weak as he was, but David, nigga, ate your lunch. And so did Solomon. Solomon had peace everywhere. The people still knew he had a lot, but he had peace. And the Lord had given him peace. So your father has whooped everybody. You got peace now. And you are going to build the temple. So we're talking about a great nation that has been reduced to nothing because of its unfaithfulness. And only the remnant is causing God to look back. So we see in verse 3. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Now, God is going... Now, this is the thing to remember, saints. Remember the four nations that Daniel talked about. The gold, silver, you have the bronze, and then the clay and steel mixed together. Now, this is what God is talking about he's going to destroy. Each of these nations has come and abused his people in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And so they have treated the Israelites like nothing. These are realistic thoughts. People were sold out. I mean, Joseph's brothers even sold him out. I mean, it's not like it's so unbelievable. His own brothers sold him out. So the worst people you could, the Ishmaelites, intermingled with Midianites, and they switching hands and taking. Then he goes to the Egyptians, a nation that hated, that's going to show it hates Israel guts at some point. So now we have to stop and say, okay, God goes back and remembers, and he's talking about all different nations. I know what you did to my people. God mentioned many times, I brought you out of Egypt. That group don't know nothing about Egypt. That was years ago. But he mentions, because you're the Israelite descendants, that I brought your forefathers out of Egypt. So you can't let your mind get caught up. You have to focus on what we're talking about, so we don't get caught up to think he's talking about, okay, the group Jeremiah is talking to, that's a group came from Egypt. Absolutely not. Some people have never been to Egypt until they went to Egypt trying to run away from getting whooped in Israel, which they shouldn't have done. And so we need to understand these are thoughts that you did my people like this, and I remember. Now something's going to happen on Pentecost, brethren, as well as listeners. It is the thrashing of God that goes all the way back to Nebuchadnezzar, Darius, and Grecian, and all the way to now. We don't understand the power of the speech on Pentecost. Jesus is the Lord of everything in heaven and in earth. That's why the little stone cut out with no hands thrashes. How does he thrash? Israel never rises up, and they never gonna whoop. How you gonna whoop Nebuchadnezzar? No, Nebuchadnezzar, they're scattered everywhere too. Everybody's scattered. The nation, each nation. That's what I want to make sure we take our time this lesson. Like I said, we're going to definitely have part two, because this is too much meat. Every nation is a people. Church is a people. That's what it means, brother. It's going to always mean that. Each nation has a God. God said, go and seek and you find it, to the prophets in the Old Testament, and told one, if a nation ever changes God, he said, but look at my people. Because God knew they always kept their God. And you may say, well, I know me. No, you don't know nobody. Because he said, a nation never changes its God. He said, but my people, we did. Nebuchadnezzar, they had a God. That was it. They made stuff. They had this the God. He was our forefathers' God. This is Cyrus' God. And this is the God it's going to be. But he said, my people, they'll change God and go to another God. As a nation with its leaders. He said, nobody. He said, if you can find it, tell me about it. He said, I don't know of any to do it. And we need to understand, sometimes we hear a statement and we'll go like, well, there's other people in there that worship other God. That's not the nation. That's not the leaders. The nation says, this is our God. They're gone forever. And he said, nobody does that but my people. That's the saints that become the ain'ts. See, because they will switch gods. Leaders and the followers. Only the remnant of Israel obey. Whereas the opposite, in the faith nation, the leaders, they say, man, you better or we'll kill you. And this is the difference. So we have to understand we don't want to be like that. So what we're dealing with now is that little stone, it goes back. How does it go back? There is no gold, silver, or bronze nation ruling at this time. So how does Christ do that? Because the message that's preached, brethren, shows you had no God, none of y'all. You got no God now. Even your Israelites, you nothing, because you're no longer a people, because he divorced you. And spoke to you in 400 years till John came, and he's going to tear up your temple, and he's going to tear up your land, let you know you're not my people. See, he wouldn't have never did that. So Peter is going to tell everybody he is the ruler and the anointed, which means he running everything. He's got a rod that his father gave him that has bust. That's what the little cutout is. Bust of every nation that exists. Now we're going to validate that point. See, the reason why we need to make sure, brethren, preach the understanding and utilization of Acts chapter 2. Brother Hamlin does a good job when he delivers telling the statement, remember who you are and whose you are. It's critical for us to understand. You let a brother sit down, he preached the message during the worship, and he doesn't get the invitation. He don't know what he's doing. Somebody get up and say, you know, if anybody want to get baptized, somebody talk about Acts chapter 2, because that's the rod. It says you on your way to hell. You lost. You on your way to hell. Your forefathers on your way to hell. That's why the stone goes back, brethren. Because it says all your people that died, that had that gold, they're in hell. Because they believe there's one Lord, Jesus. And he is the one Christ. And that's when they say, what shall we do? Because it tells the Israelite, you lost too. Me and the 119 with me, that's it. One church, one shepherd. And see, this is the mentality. So let's do some validation, you know, to make sure that we can take in the understanding. Turn your Bibles to the book of Revelation. We're going to show you this rod, the power of it. See, people think we crazy and say with one church, we have the power, lives are changed. Whether we ever see them or not, we know they changed. Because we could be around the worst group in the world. We could be around the Cretan group. But we know somebody getting changed because he got the power to bust up whatever is in your life. If you don't see yourself changing, you're not tapping into the power. And that will be the problem. Okay, if you will, look at the book of Revelation. And we're going to show chapter number 2, if you will. And look at verse 27. Revelation 2:27. Okay, now this is going to be enjoyable. Chapter 3 is so loaded, it's like a loaded weapon. Revelation 2:27. Joel 3 is powerful. Revelation 2:27. Let's go up because we want to get the part in where we come in. And we're going to show this is one of the worst churches on earth. Thyatira. Verse 24. But I say unto you and unto the rest of Thyatira, as many as have not this doctrine. He says, not this doctrine, and which have not known the depths of Satan. See, Satan runs deep, saints. Satan takes you to places of sin you never knew existed. His depth pulls you so low, only God can reach down. No saint, the saint's scared to go get you because it's so devastating. Only the Lord can empower that saint once he connects with your heart like he did Manasseh. You know why you're here? When he realizes he lifts his voice up, God lifts him out of the dungeon of another nation, puts him back in Israel in his king spot. Nebuchadnezzar is not the first one that's been brought back into his spot of reign. Manasseh dropped in there. The first, he's first because he's before Nebuchadnezzar. And we need to understand how impossible it is for you to be in another person's prison and your nation doesn't get took over while you in another person's prison and you're the king. No, the king rises up and they put you back there and you're the king there in your nation again. That's an impossibility. Brethren, that's an impossibility. That's like removing our president of Russia, and putting him in jail in Mexico and beating him, and Russia just sit there and nobody touch it. And then he goes drop back in there and he gets his rule back. That's an impossibility. That's when they hate your God. The people that hate you. He was killing them up. One of them could have took over. The new nation sure don't like you, all the ones that righteous over there. That's the power of God. And it is a power that pulls us up from the dungeon of sin. And then a saint reaches down and says, look, I'm going to pick you up. Tell you how to get out. And if you don't go with that one, you're in there for life. You can be walking around thinking it's okay, but it's not. And so he says, as they speak about the depths of Satan, verse 24, and I will put upon you none other burden. Verse 25, but that which you have already, hold fast till I come. And he that overcometh, this is the thing, brethren, overcome. See, brethren, if you don't overcome, you've lost. And so what's the beauty of Pentecost? It helped the Jew overcome. Leap over the golden vessels. They're going to mean nothing pretty soon. Once he gets baptized, that's it. It's out of his heart. Leap over the bloody animals. Leap over the ephods. Leap over the priest. Overcome. Overcome the sins that those things cannot remove. Brethren, we are cursed to an eternal hell that it's our fault while we're gone now. Not the devil. All he did is beckon and we came. And there is no hope of that damnation. And all we do is keep stacking sins without understanding them. Overcome. You can't even overcome without the Lord. See, it's a system that's designed to take you out. That's what the Lord said to the Pharisees in Matthew 23. How can you escape hell? It's designed for cats like you. You can't overcome because you won't let me pull you up. He said you got to get caught in it. So yeah, he didn't go, I'll tell you how to escape hell. There is no answer. So verse 26. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works. Beautiful statement by the Lord. So you got to overcome. That's not the baptism. Look, man, that's way heavy. That's way past baptism. Baptize, overcome, and then keep my works. You got to continue to do the works unto the end. To him will I give power over nations. Why would you need power over nations? You know how many religious belief systems are out there? And your own? You got your own. So you need to always throw your own in there. This is people. I just believe that, you know, you love your family, love your neighbor, don't hurt nobody, and you know, don't try to steal what, don't take what's not yours. If you can give something back and you've already done it, he'll have a whole list. Well, he's his own. He's his own. He's a nation of one. A nation of one. He don't agree with none of the other religions. He's right. He's got his own. But you got to have power to overcome that nation. You. How you going to defeat you if you hit yourself with a rod? I mean, it's not literal. You have to destroy that belief you have. You got a lot of saints got their own nation within themselves in the church. Verse 27. And he shall rule them with a rod. This is not literal going to happen. This is spiritual. How do you rule? Because not only can I fight you out from taking me over, I'm going to bust up what you got. Just like a nation trying to come and attack you, whatever nation you live in, they're going to attack you, and you destroy them, and then you go in that nation and destroy all their weapons and all their power, and they're like that powerless. Then you go back to your nation. So you can't whoop me, and I'm going to destroy what you use to try to come and whoop me, so you'll never rise up. And so he says in verse 27, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. Brethren, when a potter makes something, if he doesn't like it, he has a rod of iron, and when he hits it, it just breaks up. He doesn't want any room. He doesn't like it, and it's in little slivers like. It's useless. It cannot hold. It's broken, so you can't even pick up anything with it. It's so tore up. This is how doctrine is taught up in other nations. Whether it's Buddhists, whether it's Muslims, whether it's Baptists, whether it's Catholic. See, the Baptist is a nation. I hope you know. They have a headquarters. Oh, yeah. Yes, they are. And they have a ruler. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got one. And if you don't act right, you don't get to have their charge. I know one guy said he had a license with the Baptist church and the Methodist church. And he meant that. Because they didn't say, yeah, you need to show some papers to come and preach with us and deal with us. And so I know you can jump and start something, but they're not going to recognize you. You won't get to the big convention and be like, who are you again? You know, who are you? He's a rebel. He's one of the rebels, you know. So you're not in a clique group. We got a clique group in the church too, but they're not going to heaven. That's the difference. You know, and so he says, even as I received of my Father, says the same rod he gives. And I will give him the morning star. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the church. See, the Lord sent out a message. If you can understand, when you see the Lord said, he always is talking about, you know, you got to pay attention to what I'm saying. It's not too hard. We will do it and we will accomplish. Let's look back at chapter 3 of Job. If anybody have any questions, comments, you feel free. We're going to go to verse 4 now. And he's going to say, yea, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre? Now see, Tyre has a history. Tyre has a history of Hiram, of Tyre, who loved David. He loved him dearly. He was glad when Solomon took over. Hiram's fleet, according to the book of Kings, naval fleet worked under the rule of Solomon's naval fleet, and they went back and brought all manner of goods and apes and all kind of things like that from other places and brought them to, and they worked together. The idea, one thing Hiram was instrumental in, Hiram was affiliated with the Zidonians, and Solomon says in the book of Kings that nobody can cut wood like the Zidonians. Nobody. And Hiram was very glad when Solomon said that. And he prepared that wood that was placed according to the measurement that wasn't a hammer. Hiram and them cut. Remember, who's the greatest woodcutters? The Zidonians. And this is one thing we have to understand. Sometimes people get bent out of shape when you say things. You know, our job is to teach the world how to think. Sometimes you'll hear somebody say, the best welders are this group of people. You know, one of the things people get us, you know, that stereotype. No, your wisdom is lacking. Some nations, every nation has something. Some nations are better. The people are just better. It's a gift given to them by God. And nobody, as crooked as the Zidonians were, nobody could cut wood like the Zidonians. That's not stereotype, that's fact. And we need to understand it. So people get excited. See, people try to get politically correct, and after that they begin to get foolish. Because some people can do things better. We all think, no, that's why the Lord has on this earth. See, we should be able to trade and work with each other and get along, instead of trying to blow each other up all the time and give each other the honor as at least human beings. Brother Hamilton.
Before you got too far down the road, I had a comment about some of the things you were saying. I was looking back at Joel chapter 3 and verse 2. He says, I will gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people, for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And I was just thinking, like you were talking about Acts chapter 2 with on the day of Pentecost and this message being taught and this power that's being shown. And I was just thinking about how the Bible talks about in Ephesians, where it talks about the foreigner being brought into one body, to one nation. You know what I mean? And you know, when you think about it, I was just talking about the power of, you talking about the power of that, and I just had a thought, like when you think about the history of, and he's talking about Israel, he's talking about when you scattered them abroad, I'm gonna bring you to this valley and I'm gonna plead with you, all these nations. And you know, when you think about the history, God always kept a record, and he had there was recompense for all these nations that did Israel dirty. You know what I mean? And like he had a problem with them, and he would revisit back from generation to generation. He would revisit. You know what I mean? For the even though Israel was whatever they were, God still had a problem because he had a covenant with them. And the fact that he put those things aside on the day of Pentecost. You see what I'm saying? Right. I just kind of think about what you were saying, because like God had a problem with the Amalekites. He destroyed them. He had a problem with the Edomites. He destroyed them. You know, because they started raising. You know, we talk about that all the time. But you know, God paid back, and he kept in mind. And then you talk about this salvation that's come to the earth and this power and this proclamation is being made by Jesus the Lord, and he's the anointed. And you talk about all things being brought into one. So there is no hope outside of this.
Amen.
There will never be any hope outside of. That's why the kingdom is forever. Right. There is nothing else after this. There is nothing else to look forward to. Even with Israel, like those that are righteous were saved based on their faith in what God was gonna do. You see what I'm saying? But at the time they were still waiting. You know, but the rising of Christ and his proclamation, his anointing as king is the end all be all. There is nothing else after that. So it's either surrender to this, take the negotiation that I'm giving you, or you die. That is the option. So I was just thinking about that, like how powerful and how terrible God can be, in the sense of that, you know, all these nations have been gathered together, and he's talking in the spiritual sense. Like, I'm willing to put away your past discretions, your past issues, the stuff that you did to my people. I'm willing to put all those things away if you'll just come and surrender to the King.
That's it, my brother.
That's it. And when you talk about conquer, and you're talking about like rulership, and really talking about these nations took over the world, and using the same analogy, like Nebuchadnezzar when he came, or I'll talk about Nebuchadnezzar came after, but just as an example, you talked about Sennacherib when he came, he brought his people to Israel, and they surrounded the city, and he had the people, they were starving them or whatever, they besieged the city, and he sent his people down there and said, hey, listen, man, don't listen to Hezekiah and talking about your God going to deliver you. He said, where were all the other gods of these people and that people, whatever? You know, he named all these people, these lands that they had conquered. You know, so he told them to come out. He told them to surrender, basically. Surrender what you got, surrender your stuff, surrender your God, and come out. And surrender yourself, submit yourself to me. And it's when you think about that, you know, and Nebuchadnezzar came in later and wiped out, took everything. Like you said, if he didn't bother, it's because you ain't had nothing. But everybody was under his rule, and he took what you had. He took control of you and your people. He destroyed your God, and he's the only one that's left. You see what I'm saying? That's the same thing he wanted to do with the children of Israel. He said, okay, take them. Everybody gonna bow down. They're gonna worship this God. That was the rule. That's the proclamation. Went out to all the lands. When you hear a horn blow, you bow down. You worship the golden statue. That's what it is. And so that comes with domination. That comes with conquering.
That's right. So
when you think about, and I'm done. When you think about what God has done with His King Christ, it's the same concept. I've come to all the nations. He reigns. He rules. That's it. There is no other kingdom that's going to come after us, going to take over. This is the program, point blank, period. You have an option. You can surrender. You can give up your God. You can give me everything that you got, your life, your soul, your free will, so to speak, and we can have peace. Or you can die. Those are the options. You know what I mean? And that's what conquerors do. And so you were just talking about the power of this kingdom, that it lasts forever, and that's what it is. It's just that God is gracious to say, I'll let you live. We can have peace. I'll forget all the other stuff that you did back in the day.
That's right.
But you have to come and you have to surrender yourself to my King. That's it. And like I said, and there is no other power that's going to be able to save you. There is no other kingdom that you can come that's going to be able to help you. Because there is nothing else. We've conquered everything in the sacrifice that Jesus has made. Because there is nothing that can be done for sin. At the end of the day, there is no power against sin except for the blood of Christ. And so the only hope that you have is to surrender your life, surrender your God, surrender your belief, and submit to what it is that we have, submit to the program. It's either that or that. And so like I said, it's a wonderful thing in that God is willing to forgive, because even under the Old Testament, those that were Gentiles only had so many rights. They still were known as Gentiles in the land. They couldn't go inside the temple. Certain things they couldn't do because of who they were. You see what I'm saying? So they were proselytes. But in this new kingdom, everybody's the same. And no matter what you are, and no matter where you come from, God's willing to forgive all of that and to say, if you're willing to submit, then you're free here in this kingdom. But if you rebel or you decide that you're going to you refuse, then there's only death.
That's right.
And that's what conquerors do.
Amen. God bless you, Dwayne. Beautiful job. God, we recording. Yeah, and that's what our brother's teaching us. Through the thought plea, and that's what he's doing there at Pentecost. Really, you know, if you wanted to come, like the brother said, they've got prisoners. See, they've got Israelite prisoners. Their heart. If you want to see the thought of the Samaritan, he worshipped both God, the 3 times a year, those that were really wanting to keep God from eating them alive, but he worshipped his God too. That's like a Baptist and a Catholic and a Methodist. See, they worship the one true God in their own image of him. So they're like a Samaritan. That's why the Samaritans were not loved by the faithful Jew. And the Samaritans were transplants because they were not even blood Jews, but they had to go, and the other lines would have eaten them up. And by the way, Hiram is in 1 Kings chapter 5. You'll see his story. And the idea is that if we can understand that, so who would a Buddhist be? He would be one who's further away, like the idolater that doesn't even want the name in his mouth of the one true God. And so he would be like a Roman. Bacchus is his god, Zeus, and things of that nature, like the Greeks. And so, like Nebuchadnezzar, our brother mentioned. So this is how you draw the line today. So when people say, you know, look at us, well, you know, what about the Latter-day Saints? That's a Samaritan. I know he's talking about the one true God, because here's the scripture, but he's thwarting an image of him. And God said to Jeremiah, see, they want to cause my people to forget my name. See, God had a problem with the image. Remember, name means image. It deals with character. He told Jeremiah, they want to forget how I am, like we're doing today. God not with beat-based singing. So we got some Samaritans, as always, that will come for the gathering. And they will sin. The sons of Belial. They know there's a blessing in the church. They know. What was the blessing for the nations, many nations that have been transplanted, that developed the ugliness of Samaria? No lion gonna eat me up. Who's the lion? The Lion of Judah. In the spiritual sense, Christ's not gonna just chew me up. Because I know every year I'm coming 3 times. I get to hear something about it. I'll make a couple improvements. I might not drink as much wine as I did before. You know, I think I'm going to worship my God once a year. You know, maybe I've worshiped him 3 times in mine once. You know, maybe there'll be some love there. But he's constantly learning when he goes. That's why we need to invite people. Invite. Don't get them baptized. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Invite them. Drop some seeds. Invite them. Don't wait till the gospel meeting. Invite them. Let them see. This is their pilgrimage 3 times a year, metaphorically. Let them go back and worship their false image, and then bring them back again. Have a Bible study with, because you drop seed. Eventually you might get 1 or 2. But the numbers get cold and cold because men's love for the Lord is drying up, saints. And so we have to understand that. And we understand in chapter 4, he says, so we know about Tyre, and there is Zidon. Remember the Zidonians and Tyre, kind of a connection there. So he says, and all the coasts of Palestine. He says, look what he says to them. What do I have to do with you? Now remember, Hiram is the reason they got the wood for Solomon to build a temple. He purchased it. Their navies work together. He says, your God is blessed. But you have to understand now, Tyre and Zidon become buck wild. And so all the error that they did after the blessing that God had given them, he says, okay. He says, what do I have to do with you? Just because you made some wood, he's speaking as if that time and this time ago, that don't mean nothing to me. I know the wood going to be in the temple. That don't mean nothing to me. I know you're bringing apes to Solomon. That don't mean nothing to me either. He wants the soul to belong to him. So he says, will you render me a recompense? So he said, okay, now since you acted a fool, my people, you're part of the grabbing of the Israelites, the foolishness that went on, whatever scraps were left. So you could just basically, remember we studied in the first 2 chapters, you could just basically eat them. I said, they were crazy too. They came in and just started pulling Israelites. Hey, you left the prisoner back here, telling on them, taking the stuff that was left. So he began to tell them too, I know you twin brother children. You're nothing to me either. You didn't want me to be your king. You wouldn't serve him like I told you. Got your own king. I'm going to destroy you and your people. And this is what a person has to understand. This is God's payback. He says, what will you pay me back? What's the recompense? And if you recompense me, look what he's saying to do. And if it's like a guy owe you money, you may say, what you going to pay me? And he give you the money, he said, swiftly and speedily, well, I'll return your recompense upon your own head. Isn't that amazing? So you know, you got all your money, he done took your people prisoner, and you come there and say, give me my people back, you know, give me my people back. And then you go there, I'm going to pay you back. When he bring the money, it's a disrespect, it's contempt. So bam, you kill him. That's what he's saying. Your money, well, I don't even want it. What did they do to Judas? His money back. Exactly. When he hung himself, go buy the field of blood for him. They bought the field. Judas didn't buy that. The Old Testament says he bought it. How? Because it's his money. He threw it them. They purchased it and buried him in the field of blood. That's the thing. That's still to this day. We have to understand, recompense me, this I'm going to pay you back. For trying to pay me back, I'm going to kill you. So the Lord is saying, you got to get baptized to be saved. Don't come bring me no gifts. I don't want no golden mice like the Philistines. I take that junk off the ark. I don't want that. I want your soul. You give your soul to me. And all you can do is, because it's mine already, is pay me with obedience when I tell you what to do with that soul. And this is where we lose so many as we get wrap up here. Verse 5, because you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. Now see, these are the physical things. See, he goes back. And this is why when we read, we just want to take our time and look at it. Okay, he goes to the physical, sell child, for a heart, all that. Okay, come back. Look at him. No fit. See, Nebuchadnezzar pops in the mind. Remember what Cyrus did? We studied one evening sermon about Cyrus. Cyrus took all the gold. Man, there was so much stuff. It was thousands of pieces of gold and silver. Thousands. I'm talking about with an S. Brought it back because this is what he told me. So he took my stuff, put it in your God temple. I put my stuff. So he's pointing out, like Brother Hammond said, I remember. See, God, talk about an elephant, man. Look here, God know and remember everything. And he knows I'm going to pay you back. Why is he going to pay you back? But you say, well, this is a place of redemption when it comes. Yeah, if you get baptized, like Brother Preacher said just now. If you get baptized, like the one said, you got to give up your life. If not, I'm a kid. What? Your soul going to hell? Your God going to hell? Your people going to hell? You know? All your goods going to hell? You know everything you got going to get burned up in hell. He said, I defeated you. You come with that doctor, we have a Methodist. Busting them to shivers. Either you come here or you die. And see, today we are trying to, our pleading is different. Now, you make a good point. You don't make no good point. He's lost. His point is shot unless he's talking about righteousness and saying you're right, talking about you right. He wants a kinship, but you're not related to him. You know you'd get mad if a guy kept saying, Hamilton, I am your cousin. That's a lie. You'd be like, this guy's crazy. He'd probably kill me in a minute. Get him away from me. He's no kin to you. So he says in verse 6, the children of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians that you might remove them from their border. See, remember, each time a nation took over, Israel was like a piece of material. Shifted on that. Shifted on that. Got y'all as our prisoner. Daniel went from one leader to the next. Okay, purple robe, ring, but he's still number 2. Noah was made number 1 because he's under rule. Darius come in. Okay, I like this guy, Daniel. Make him number 1. Second order to me. He's the president. All this type of stuff. This is what we need to understand. So he says in verse 7, behold, I will raise them out of the place where you have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. He's saying, don't make no deals with me. Well, can I still be a priest and wear an ephod? Although I'm on the Midianites and I give you a tithe, I don't want your ephod. I don't want no priesthood. We'll have that. You're going to be a priest like everybody else, and we don't even give no tithe. See, just no deals. Bam! Hit you in your head, bust you to shivers. Your doctrine, your belief, and all that. We have to understand, brother, it's one way or you go the wrong way. And we don't need to be making no apologies to nobody. So we're going to stop right here. If you're here, you're not a member of the church, recognize you can be. The shivers, you can either be the shivers or you can be the saved. Because the Lord is raising up the rod and his children that will rod right with him, ready to swing. Because he said, if you overcome, I'm going to give you the rod. And you knock down the doctrine. So What is the one way? Yes, he died. He was buried on the third day. 1 Corinthians 15, 1-4 is correct and must remain in the heart until the end. But in Mark 16, 16, he said, he that believes in the baptized shall be saved. He that believes not shall be damned. The promise is you will be damned. It's a guarantee. And so with that thought in mind, Peter preaches in these Acts again. Where we start out, he's Lord in Christ, the man you killed. And they have the wisdom to say, men and brethren, what shall we do? Change and be baptized. You've got to be baptized. Every one of you, that sins will be removed, remission of sin, and receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. See, it's not just how the sins are removed, because you don't get dirty again without the gift of the Holy Ghost. See, without him, you're going to get dirty. And without the Holy Ghost, you won't know what to do when you get dirty again. You have to be able to understand without him, there's no hope. He says, the promise to you, your children, all that are far off, even as many as the Lord our God shall call. In many other words, he testifies and encourages them. Save yourself from this untoward, perverted generation. No understanding of how to go straight. By choice. And he says, with many other words, he did this. They that gladly received his word were baptized the same day. 3,000 souls were added to the church. What did they contain? The apostles' doctrine. The fellowship. And that is always to walk in the light of Christ. That doesn't mean to eat chicken together. And it don't even mean to gather. To walk in the light of Christ. The fellowship is to walk in the light. How we know? Because 1 John chapter 1 says, if we walk in the light as Christ in the light, then we have fellowship one with another. That's the only way. That's the fellowship he's talking about. Breaking of bread and prayers. Praying to the one true God. Not Rastafarian, weed-smoking, Haile Selassie nonsense. The one true God. We need to understand that we believe that. Acts 2:47, he says clearly, and the Lord added to the church, they that should be saved. In Acts chapter 8, the eunuch is a perfect example of the end of Judaism. All the way you would think, well, God would cut him some type of slack, give him a pass call all the way from Ethiopia. He's not understanding nothing in that. Don't even know if the man talking about himself or someone else. Philip knows exactly. How does Philip know? Because he's a New Testament believer and he understands. None of them would have been able to answer that question but Philip. Not even Caiaphas, Annas, none of them. And so when he explains it to him, he sees the water. He says, what did hinder me to be baptized? You will not find any of those words in Isaiah 53 because that's New Testament connected to Isaiah 53. You have to know how to wind it in together. He says, if you believe it all your heart, you may. He says, I believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Stops the chariot, and then he baptized, and then he rejoices. Philip is taken away and found somewhere else. We understand that Paul explains why it's done like this. 1 Corinthians 12:13. By one Spirit are we all baptized into one body. That's one church. Like Brother Hamilton taught, Colossians 1:18, Colossians 1:24 says, have all been made to drink into one Spirit, whether you're in jail or not, whether you're Jew or Gentile. That's the beauty of it. We have to understand now, if the one church meant Catholic and Baptist in there, we would be fighting in heaven. Because somebody say, we did pray to Mary, we'd be fighting. Mary have to come between. Y'all children stop fighting. Wouldn't that not be chaos and damnable here, sis? Mary would have to come between and stop fighting over me. What kind of nonsense is that, brethren? Please. There's no way those two different things could be a part of the Lord. And neither one of them are right. We have to understand that, brother. It's a nation that does not accept what God teaches. And you have to take the rod, the word, and bust up the doctrine. And we understand that. If you believe that, the Lord said to Peter, baptism saved. 1 Peter 3:21-22. The like fig wine that even baptism is also not save us. Not the putting away the filth of the flesh, but is the answer of a good conscience to our God. By the resurrection of Jesus Christ, it has meaning. Where is he in heaven? What's his post? Foot washer? No, at the right hand of God. What's under him? Everything. Powers, all those things. Heaven and in earth. And God has placed those things on his foot. The last enemy is death. And it will be placed there shortly by our Father's hands. He said he would do it for his Son. And we believe that and we understand it. Revelation 2:10, this great Jesus tells us, the devil shall cast some of you in prison. You have tribulation 10 days. Fear not, fear not. He said, be faithful unto death. You have everlasting life. You get straight in. You remember I used to hear the word tribulation. Oh, Lord have mercy. You get nervous. Who wants to suffer? Fear not. Be faithful. Everlasting life. Nobody's going to be in heaven saying, man, I'll tell you it's good to be here. But boy, down there on earth, knees getting weak. Lift him up. He's in heaven. Man, nobody going to think about no foolish place like this. Please. Nobody. God will wipe away all tears, and we believe that. If you're here, you need to be baptized, you listen to this message, please call the number that's on the screen, because it will guide you to safety. We'll find someone to baptize you. If you're here, though, and you need to be strengthened, I want to encourage you. Don't hesitate. I used to have a lot of things that trouble me. I couldn't wait to get to service Wednesdays and Sundays. So I said, I'm going to get this off my back. And I know whoever they're going to pray, I know the Lord hears. Always, always, always have the courage to ask for prayer when you need it. Come now, together we stand and sing Heaven's invitation.
There's a fountain
And free, 'tis for you and me. Let us haste, oh haste to its brink. 'Tis the fount of love from the source above, and he bids us all freely drink. Will you come to the fountain free? Will you come? 'Tis for you and me. Thirsty soul, hear the welcome call. 'Tis a fountain.